Mr. Wars, February 24th marks 1 year since the start of Russian invasion into Ukraine. What should we expect in the second year of the war? Do you see an end in sight?
Well, I think at least for the next few months, we'll see more fighting. Both President Putin and President Zelensky have laid out their war goals, and they're completely incompatible. NATO will continue to back Ukraine strongly, at least this year, and China may weigh more heavily towards Russia, but I think we'll just see more fighting. I don't I don't see a major change in the battlefield, but we saw last year radical shifts over time, so I could very well be wrong on that.
US has pledged an additional $2 billion in assistance to Ukraine, which includes unmanned aerial systems as well as critical ammunition stocks for artillery. However, this assistance does not include the fighter aircrafts that Ukraine has long sought. In your view, does the US military aid to Ukraine change the dynamics on the battlefield in Ukraine?
So the US and the allies have continued to upgrade the level of military support they're willing to provide Ukraine. So they've given better and better air defenses, better drones, better long-range artillery, and most recently tanks and other ground army vehicles. The fighter plane debate is still in flux. I think for now we're going to see further enhancements to Ukraine's air defenses, but there'll perhaps be some movement on providing Ukraine with Soviet-type planes, such as MiGs. The F-16 debate is genuinely complex because it will take them a while to train and learn how to use those planes, and there's a worry about the Russian response, but I would think that if Russia started to make unexpected gains on the battlefield, maybe that would accelerate the timetable for providing the Ukrainians with much better air power.
The White House announced on Friday new sanctions targeting banking, mining, and defense sectors, as well as over 200 individuals and entities, including both Russian and third country actors across Europe, Asia, and the Middle East that are supporting Russia's war effort. It is the latest set of sanctions against Russia since the start of the invasion. Do these sanctions against Russia work, and what kind of effect have they had on the course of the war?
They've worked, but not as well as people had hoped. So they have impeded Russia's ability to acquire items useful for military operations. But as we saw in today's sanctions, they've managed to circumvent some of those limits by using third parties and cut out entities. And I think the sanctions designed to match that. I mean, we see this often with the case of Iran, North Korea, Russia, that the West, led by the US, adopts a range of sanctions. The targeted country tries to maneuver around them over time, finds ways to get around them. So the West then imposes more sanctions to make up for the gaps that are being seen, and then the sanctioned entity responds. So they're never going to be foolproof. I think that one particular problem we had last year was Russia's ability to sell oil and gas and still make an enormous amount of money, which they could use to fuel the war. I think some recent changes, the better situation in Europe regarding future energy supplies, the new sanctions on that try and force down the price of oil, that may help reduce that flow of income, but China might intervene by just buying a lot of Russian products at high prices just to subsidize the Russians, so that will compensate for any challenge that could compensate for the sanctions.
How has the war in Ukraine changed the regional dynamics? How has it affected Russia's influence in the post-Soviet space?
Yeah, so clearly there's more anxiety in other countries about Russian foreign policy. It's not seen as a reliable security guarantor the way it might have been earlier, even by governments which are inclined towards Russia. There's some concerns about Russia turning on, Georgia, Moldova, even Kazakhstan later. depending what happens in the Ukraine war. But other dynamics have been affected less than you might have thought. So China has not moved in to fill the gap in Central Asia. The Georgian government's moved closer to Russia, but Azerbaijan and Armenia, it's whatever. It hasn't changed that dynamic very much, though. I think you're seeing the countries probing to see if Russia's distraction provides them with more opportunities. I think that's what's behind some of the recent Azerbaijani moves to raise the level of confrontation with Armenia and to try and settle the disputed territories now.